Welcome to this meeting of Council, the meeting where we live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Before we go any further with the typical agenda items, we of course wanted to acknowledge the terrible events at Bondi Beach on Sunday night. So on behalf of councillors and staff, I'd like to extend our deepest condolences to the families and friends of the horrific terrorist attack at Bondi Beach, to the first responders who ran towards danger, and to the entire Jewish community grieving this unthinkable tragedy. Our flags are flying at half-mast as a mark of respect and solidarity. This attack was an assault on everything we value as Australians. There is absolutely no place for anti-Semitism, hatred or violence in our community or anywhere in this country. In the face of such evil, we must stand united and refuse to let hate divide us. Please take time to grieve and check in on one another. In dark times like these, the bonds of community matter more than ever. I now move to apologies and leaves of absence. CEO, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Mayor Price. Annabelle Harding's our governance coordinator is a late apology due to an illness, and I will take over the role of the administration on her behalf.
Thank you, CEO. Any declarations of conflict of interest with tonight's agenda? No, we'll move to item 5, open forum. CEO, do we have any questions tonight for open forum?
Neil, Mayor Price.
Item 6 is community and council achievements. Does anyone have a community or council achievement to raise with the meeting tonight? No? Item 7 is condolences. Do we have any condolences to raise with the meeting? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor Price. We were deeply saddened to hear of the passing of Alan Rockcliffe. Alan was a much-loved and generous member of the Yakandanda community whose quiet dedication and willingness to volunteer has made a lasting difference. Through his involvement with the primary school, riding club, community garden, football netball club and many other community groups, Alan gave his time and helped strengthen the fabric of our town. I worked personally with Alan on the Dry Creek Bed project at the school, where he volunteered over several weekends to help deliver a project that would have been otherwise impossible with limited funds. Alan's contribution, kindness and community spirit will be remembered with great appreciation. Our heartfelt condolences are with Alan's family, friends and all those who had the privilege of knowing him. Can I ask that a letter be sent to Alan's family, please?
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. CEO, we will send a letter to the family. Item 8 is confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. 1, minutes of the additional meeting, the statutory, held on the 25th of November 2025 as published on the Council's website, and 2, minutes of the Council meeting held on the 25th of November 2025 as published on the Council's website, and 3, confidential minutes of the Council meeting held on the 25th of November 2025 as provided to councillors under separate cover. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Harvey, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd? Anybody else? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from previous minutes. And there are 2 items there, one from the scheduled council meeting on the 28th of October 2025, item 13.3, the road discontinuance and transfer of land for 27 Murray Street, Rutherglen. Council passed a resolution that if no submissions were received during a public notice period, the road would be formally discontinued and the sale of land progress without the need for a further report to council. No submissions were received, therefore council officers are finalising the process to discontinue the road and to sell the land. And the second item was from the 25th of November 2025 scheduled council meeting. And the outcomes of the following agenda item previously considered in confidential session are now released for public information, and that is item 19.2, the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee new member. Narelle Martin was appointed by Council as a member for the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee. The appointee has been notified and has accepted the appointment. Item 10 is petitions. Councillor Shepherd.
Could I speak to just that business arising, if I could? I just wanted to welcome Narelle, who has attended our first IEAC meeting, and just give her background that she's a Beechworth resident, environmental consultant. She's the founder and director of her own business, Regional Change Agency. She's worked previously with the local and state government, both within Australia and in Canada, and with several other organisations on sustainability and climate change action. Most recently, Narelle has worked with the Riverina and Murray Joint Organisation to author their regional energy strategy. So as you can see, she's well qualified and a great addition to the IEAC.
Thank you for that, Councillor Shepherd. I'll now go to item 10, petitions. CEO, are there any petitions?
Nil, Mayor Price.
Item 11 is Planning and Corporate Services, and item 11.1 is the Procurement Policy 2025. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council adopts the Procurement Policy 2025. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Landells. Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Mayor Price. This policy is about how council spends money. A good thing about this policy is that it's fair and clear. It explains the rules so businesses know what's expected when they're providing services or products to the council. That makes it very easy for local business to have a go at quoting instead of feeling like only big city companies can win the work. Procurement also works best when there's real competition. When more businesses are encouraged to put in a quote or tender, council gets better prices, better ideas, and better quality work. Competition keeps everyone sharp and helps stop costs from creeping up. That's good for council. It's also good for local businesses. Competition pushes business to improve, invest, and build skills, which makes them stronger over time. This policy also makes it clear that the cheapest price isn't always the best choice. Council can look at quality, reliability, and how quickly a business can respond. Local businesses often do well here because they're nearby and understand the area. When local businesses work, the money stays in our towns. It supports local jobs, local families, and helps young people see real career opportunities close to home. This policy doesn't say council must always choose a local business, but it does make sure that local businesses get a fair chance to compete, which leads to better outcomes for everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, please. I just wanted to say this policy came to council a couple of months ago and then went out to the community for feedback, and a little bit of feedback was provided, and that feedback's been incorporated into the policy and also into the procedures that will accompany the policy. I think it does, as I said when the draft came to council, it does have the capacity to impact many areas of economic and community prosperity, and it plays its role in moving towards thriving communities, which we often place in a lot of our strategic documents. So I think it's a good positive policy from that perspective, and a lot of good work's gone in to bring it to this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor Price. When I was reviewing this document, I was particularly interested in the EOI process and how that would work in a number of different scenarios, but also the scenario whereby we run an EOI to lease a council-owned land or buildings. I'd like to thank the staff for providing some additional context in the covering report around that particular item. So I just wanted to explain that this document, the procurement policy, does not cover the leases for council-owned land or buildings, and this might include things like the caravan parks or other buildings that may be used for kindergarten facilities or others. They fall outside of the procurement policy. They're actually covered under a separate section in the Local Government Act, and as such, they're legally distinct from procurement. This topic is typically captured through a formal leasing and licensing policy, which provides guidance on managing leases and licenses over council-owned property. So I'd like to ask a couple of questions, if that's okay. My first question is, does Indigo Shire currently have a formal leasing and licensing policy? And the second part of that question is, if not, will the CEO take an action to add this generation of a new policy into the forward works plan?
CEO?
Yeah, thank you, Council, for the question through you, Mayor Price. We don't currently have a separate policy as other councils do, but we do recognise the need for one. What we do is that, depending on the issue, we bring them to council on a case-by-case basis and have council endorse a process. So there's still that visibility, but we don't have a separate policy that gives the community a clear line of sight as to what will happen in the future. Because there's a range of buildings we have, large and small, and it'd be good to have that sort of surety and knowledge of what's going to happen for all of them. So we do see the need for one, and we do plan to have one in the next, I'll say in the next 12 months. We hope to get one of our own, or bring to council for consideration.
Any other questions, Councillor Dowsley?
That's all, thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Burke, as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, just briefly. Overall, this policy is about spending money wisely, encouraging competition and giving local businesses the opportunity to succeed. And that's good for the whole community.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2 is the Environmentally Sustainable Design Policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council endorses the draft Environmentally Sustainable Design Policy and places the document on public exhibition for a period of 6 weeks, commencing on the 17th of December 2025. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Dowsley. Councillor Shepherd.
This is, I think this is a great leap forward for us. For a long time, we've decided that climate emergency is important to us, but we haven't had the capacity to be able to encourage our planning, our developers to align their views with ours. I mean, of course, we've encouraged them to think along ESD, but this is our opportunity now to give a framework, to give a policy that we can enact, that when a developer comes to us, we can say, these are the sustainable development guidelines that we would like you to follow. And I know our community has been asking us for a while on asking us to provide assistance with getting good development out there. And when the planning department say to us, well, what is good development? What do you want? And we often struggle to say what is good development, but this ESD policy, which will be out there for community to look at and to give their own feedback, will give that framework and those. It's listed here. We're going to be looking at 7 categories: site layout and livability, streets and public realm, energy, ecology, integrated water management, urban heat, circular economy. We have CASB, which is the Council Alliance for a Sustainable Built Environment. It's an association of Victorian councils, and it helps us. Has helped with the templates. So we're working with them. We also, through Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance, have an officer that a few of those councils will be using, a network of, I think, 5 or 6 of us are sharing a sustainable subdivisions advisor who will support our planning staff for the next 12 months in that area. So This is an interim policy. We're hoping, of course, to get this into our planning scheme. But in the meanwhile, already this is being enacted, and we're asking our developers to apply these sustainable framework to their planning when they come to us. So, I think it's a pretty good document, and I'm very excited. And I'd just like to thank the planning team for stepping up to help us with this. I think it'll provide us and our developers and our community a great policy and framework.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Dowsley, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thank you. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the planning staff for bringing us this policy. Over the last 12 to 14 months as a councillor, we've made it clear that we support development in the Shire, but that we want good quality, sustainable development. We want development that benefits the existing community and not only respects our community character, but enhances it. But to be honest, we've struggled to find provisions in the current planning scheme to support our vision. This is a very important step, and it's also very welcome, towards our longer term goal, which is to update local provisions within our planning scheme to support sustainable leading practice development across the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I'm also very pleased to see the development of this draft environmentally sustainable design policy, as I see it as a sensible step towards better quality development outcomes. As we all know, cost of living pressures are real. Good design that reduces energy and water demand isn't airy-fairy hippie ideology. It's common sense because it is all about livability, shade, greenery, and healthier places for us to live, work, and play. Who doesn't want to hear about homes and buildings that are more comfortable, more resilient, and potentially cheaper to run over time? We're aiming for a policy that improves quality of life today and resilience for tomorrow. So I urge you to please accept the invitation to join the conversation and give us your feedback and buy-in. I look forward to catching up with you during the public exhibition period.
Thanks, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Landells.
Thank you. I echo the comments of fellow councillors who've spoken quite well on this item. I think certainly it has been a real focus, I think generally I could say, for this council, that we want to see sustainable development and particularly in new subdivisions and embracing a lot of the principles that are laid out in the policy. And, to just quote a line out of the policy, this will allow council to set thresholds for environmentally sustainable design elements in new subdivisions. And it emphasises council's expectations around minimising environmental impacts, reducing water use and energy use, promoting shading and green spaces in new development. It is another really important step forward in our quest to ensure that future development across our Shire is in line with community expectations, and also council's long-standing commitment to recognising climate change and its impacts. So, it's a great opportunity for the community now. It's out for comment for 6 weeks to give us their feedback on it too.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up?
I think it's pretty obvious we're pretty happy to be supporting this policy and would like to thank we have a newish strategic planner. I think we've had a lot of things on the back burner waiting to move forward, and this is one of them. I'd also like to note that in this report, it does mention that we're working towards preparation of a sustainable council building policy too. And this will ensure council will lead by example and take critical steps towards greater climate resilience and adaptation in the future in our own buildings. So there's some great steps forward, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.3 is PA 240182 Planning Permit 1305 Beechworth Wodonga Road, Wurrigi. And I'm going to go to the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you. A few days ago, we were contacted by the applicant to just let us know that he would like to change some of the details of the application and that what is presented isn't what he'd like to go forward with. So tonight, I'll withdraw this item from the agenda, please, and then we'll bring this back as and when required.
Thank you. I will now go to item 12, Community and Economic Development. 12.1 is the round 3 Tiny Towns funding applications. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the following projects for a funding application to the round 3 Tiny Towns Fund. A, the Old Chiltern Library refurbishment, and B, the Rutherglen Maternal and Child Health client amenity upgrades. And 2, notes that if the funding applications are successful, Council's financial contribution will be $15,000 per project, totalling a maximum of $30,000 to be included in the 26-27 and the 27-28 budget. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Landell, seconded Councillor Harvey. Councillor Landells.
Thank you. I certainly support the 2 projects that have been chosen, and I think that I have some knowledge of both of them. So if I start with the first one, which is the Old Chiltern Library refurbishment, I think we moved out that library in April last year, so it's been sitting idle for about 20 months. The community are very, very keen to take up some of the spaces in there, and I know there's a number of groups that are interested in that, so I guess that we would run some kind of an EOI process to work out how that works. But before any of that can happen, there doesn't need to be some cleaning up of that space, and a refurbishment would get it to, and I think it adjoins the toilets in the Memorial Hall. I've been told by locals and experienced it myself that they're well below par, so they need an improving as well, which I think is part of this proposal. And Rutherglen Maternal and Child Health facility, I haven't been in there for about a decade, but I know when I was in there, the kitchen was very, very tired in there, and that's currently, for what it's being used for, I think definitely needs upgrading. So and these applications look to be fairly modest, really, but I'm interested to see. Obviously, we're all keen to see that the applications are successful, hopefully, and and then that could be 2 important refurbishments of those facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thank you. I just would like to recommend to lots of other groups in Indigo Shire to look at this and come up with some ideas so they too can get some funding. Both these items are very worthy, and our $15,000 contribution to each should go a long way to making sure they're done. And, if people out there have an idea about an old building or something, try to get organized and see if we can get a grant for you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I'm very supportive of endorsing these applications to the Round 3 Tiny Towns Fund, because this is one of the most direct ways we can turn a very modest investment of community funds into such meaningful, visible benefits. It's especially pleasing to note the practical nature of these 2 community projects, the Old Chiltern Library refurbishment and the Rutherglen Maternal and Child Health Care amenity upgrades. These are the sorts of improvements people feel immediately: welcoming spaces, better dignity and comfort, and stronger community facilities that support everyday life. The checks and balances are here also. This is a competitive state process with clear criteria and reporting expectations, so we're not just handing out money casually. and council's contribution is clearly defined, $15,000 per project. Importantly, there are no surprises. If the applications are successful because the funding contribution comes back through the proper budget process 2026-27 and/or in the following year with inbuilt transparency, deliberation and accountability. There's also a broader fairness factor that reduces the risk of tiny towns being overlooked. This fund exists specifically to lift the chances of places with less than 5,000 people and make sure they're not left behind. I'm fully supportive and I've got my fingers crossed.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burke?
Thanks, Mayor. I support both of these tiny town projects as well. What stands out to me with both of these applications is the strong community involvement behind them. These aren't ideas that have just come out of thin air. They've come from people who use these spaces, care about them, and are willing to put their time and energy into making them better for others. With the old Chiltern Library refurbishment, this project is about more than a building upgrade. It's about revitalising a well-loved community space so it can continue to be used for meetings, local groups and community connection. The support for this project shows just how important the building remains to the town. A modest investment here will protect a valued local asset and ensure it stays active and useful for years to come. The Rutherglen Maternal and Child Health Clinic, the maternal and child health client amenity upgrade is equally important, but for a different reason. This project is focused on young families at a critical time in their lives. Improving the comfort, accessibility and usability of this space directly supports parents, carers and children when they need it most. It's a practical upgrade that delivers very real benefits, better privacy, better comfort and a more welcoming environment. From time to time, people say to me that council should only focus on roads, rates and rubbish. These things are absolutely important, but projects like these show that good councils also support people and places. This is an example of council using a relatively small amount of money to strengthen community connection, support families and make existing facilities work better. Both projects demonstrate excellent value for money. They leverage existing facilities, have strong local backing and deliver outcomes that are used regularly by the community. Importantly, these applications show that the Tiny Towns project does best, supporting small, locally driven projects that make a big difference. For these reasons, I support both funding applications and commend them to council.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Landells. Would you like to sum up?
No, thanks.
If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2 is the review of council response on a catastrophic fire danger day policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 revokes the current council's response on a catastrophic fire danger day policy, and 2 notes the CEO directive provision of council services on a catastrophic fire danger day, which has been prepared to immediately replace the policy upon its revocation. To have somebody to move that. Moved Councillor Landells, seconded Councillor Burke. Councillor Landells.
Thank you. I've worked in local government for 15 years and I'm been through at least 3 emergency situations, and I'm comfortable with this particular matter moving to a CEO directive. And I suppose one of those experiences was fairly recent, within the last month, since our last meeting actually. So what I've sort of learnt, and I guess particularly in the case of fire emergency, is that emergency management situations are often, they can come up very quickly, an unexpected incident. So, and any response has to be specific to the location of that incident and how it may impact delivery of council services. And across a wide and diverse shire like Indigo Shire, that could be a very different response depending on where the incident is. So for that, predominantly for that purpose, I believe a CEO directive is more appropriate than a policy in a sudden emergency situation. It's more nimble and responsive. Should the priority, sorry, it should be the priority, I believe, that a CEO directive provides that better than a policy.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I also support this this policy. It doesn't turn councillors into emergency managers. It leaves the CEO as the best person in place to be using the CEO directive. Councillors don't and shouldn't decide which buildings open or close on a catastrophic fire danger day, and we shouldn't tell staff what to do during an emergency. That job stays with the CEO and council staff, and so should be a CEO directive.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn?
My concern is that replacing a council policy with a CEO directive shifts the balance away from democratic representation. This is clearly a matter over which the CEO already holds operational authority, just as employment decisions sit with the CEO's remit. My concern is not about whether the CEO can perform this duty, it's about how that authority is framed and seen by the public. Moving this into a CEO directive risks reducing councillors to oversight after the fact, rather than the shared, transparent decision-making the community reasonably expects from its elected representatives. I feel it would also weaken transparency. Council policies are debated in open meetings, supported by published reports and recorded in minutes. CEO directives simply don't sit under that same public spotlight. When the stakes are high, people want to see their elected councils visibly setting the framework, not stepping back behind closed doors. The question isn't whether efficiency is desirable, of course it is. The real question is whether this change improves outcomes for the community while maintaining public confidence, or whether it unintentionally erodes trust by making people feel their elected voices have been sidelined. It's also worth noting that this was the only recommendation to come from the review of our existing policy, which suggests the current approach has served us well. If it's not broken, why fix it? Our role as elected members is to ensure the governance framework reflects that reality while keeping democratic oversight and transparency where it belongs, in the open. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Price. I don't think that a CEO directive is necessary for this. I believe the present arrangements are adequate and provide the necessary powers to the executive to deal with the situation. The documentation states that there would be very little change, and as Councillor Horn pointed out, this was the only recommendation to come out of the review. You know, if it's necessary, we can tweak a council plan or policy. And until then, the existing policy would apply. We're not just going to say we're not going to have any policy. And I too believe it's very important for council to retain some oversight over the arrangements for a catastrophic fire day for an emergency. We're the elected representatives. We should have something in there, the umbrella organization or something, and that we should be able to review this procedure or our policy from time to time. Our constituents would expect this. They would look to us. They'd want to know. They would ask me. So I think it's important that we have some oversight. So I recommend that we retain the existing policy and perhaps amend it a little if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor Price. I did vote last month to defer this decision to tonight's meeting. I wasn't ready last month to make a decision. I was still considering all of the arguments put on the table. But over the last month, I've done a lot more research. I've reread all of the documents again and again. And something that became clear to me in rereading the existing policy was that I think the existing policy was actually an operational document. I don't think it was really originally at the policy level, which to me supports the idea that this document is changed to a CEO directive. And mainly I've come up with the 3 reasons why I think that that's valid. The first one is for faster and more responsive decision making. So on a catastrophic fire danger day, responses are operational and they're time critical. A CEO directive allows immediate implementation and amendment without potential delays that might be caused by council meeting cycles and report processes. Secondly, clear alignment with delegated operational responsibility. The CEO already holds responsibility for staff safety and emergency response actions. The CEO directive formalises this operational role. And the third reason is best practice risk management and consistency. CEO directives are widely used across Victorian councils to manage operational risk. In fact, I think the research that we've done indicates that a high proportion of councils are using CEO directives for this exact topic. This approach enables risk-based decisions informed by real-time conditions and ensures timely communication. So for those reasons, I do agree that this should be a CEO directive. I do take on board the comments of the other councillors though, and I look forward to finding out more information over the next coming months about the wider emergency management framework and how this fits into that wider framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, I've struggled with this. I also voted for a deferral to think about the best way of having this, either as a policy or as a directive. I can't see, we've already given the CEO that ability to do whatever he wants within this policy. And if we wanted to, we could say we have an overall policy and the CEO directive is part of that policy. At the moment, I'm concerned that it's not outward facing at all. So there's transparency, there's our opportunity to discuss and look at something when it's a policy. And it's also an opportunity for us to discuss budget and costs and the things that we, might have, we might want to say, we want to spend a lot of money on this, or we don't agree. Like, I think the CEO needs to be nimble and absolutely needs to be able to do whatever they need to do in that space. But I wonder what our role is in outward facing transparency to the community for them to see, as the purpose of the report, preparation for and arrangements regarding the provision of council services on a catastrophic fire danger day. So where else do we discuss that, and where else do they have the community have the opportunity to see those arrangements? If it's an operational document, again, absolutely needs to be operational, but does there need to be something up higher that addresses what our role is in this space? And I get that we haven't had a catastrophic day yet, but the Riverina had one last week. So we can't just sort of say, oh, it's okay, we don't have many catastrophic days. They are coming. We will be having many catastrophic days. So how do we communicate what we're doing to the community if it's an internal document? So I still haven't come to, I'm still unsure about how we deal with this. And the more it becomes an internal discussion, the less transparent we are for community to see what we're going to be doing. But I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I voted to approve this at the last council meeting, but obviously I voted against the deferral at the last council meeting because I was comfortable with the CEO directive at that point. But I'm really interested in all the discussion that councillors are having about it, because I think what it highlights is really that we want clarity in this space about what people's roles and responsibilities are, and we want to be very clear on what council's role is, and also where the CEO's role fits within that. I think that I'm still comfortable with this as a CEO directive because for lots of the same reasons that Councillor Dowsley mentioned, I think it is largely an operational document. But I think that a lot of the concern or interest that I have in whether it becomes a directive or a policy is largely about the suite of documents that it fits in. And I'm really interested in our council having a really clear understanding of what that framework is, where we fit, where all of the other emergency services fit, so that we can own exactly what our role is in that space. But in this instance, on a catastrophic fire danger rating day, I'm comfortable that a CEO directive doesn't hand our CEO any power, or more, it hands enormous responsibility that would weigh heavily on him and the decisions that he would have to make on that day. And I hope that a directive provides the ability to be nimble and to make good decisions on behalf of our community and on behalf of our employees and advisory committee, volunteers, anyone engaged in council business. So for that reason, I'll vote for the directive tonight. I'll go back to you, Councillor Landells. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to firstly thank each of the councillors. It's not too often that all 7 of us have a comment about a particular matter, but clearly this is one that there's a range of different views on, and I really appreciate the thought and the words people have put together. I probably don't have too much more to add. I believe all those views have been expressed fairly openly and honestly, and with quite a lot of research gone into them. And for me, it is about council being in a situation where we can be, that word again, nimble and responsive to a catastrophic event. And I do believe the CEO directive will best do that for us. And I would like to just say, on the broader topic of policies versus CEO directives, I believe that it is important that we just look at those on a case-by-case basis as they might arise. And I'm comfortable with this one, but because I feel there are some exceptional circumstances.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. I'll put it to the vote to revoke the current policy and to note the CEO directive. All those in favour? And those against? So those in favour was Councillor Dowsley, Price, Burke and Landells. Those against was Councillor Harvey, Horn and Shepherd. The motion is carried. Item 13 is infrastructure services, and item 13.1 is the proposed lane closure between Connors Street and Greens Lane, Chiltern. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 approves the closure of the northern part of the laneway from Connors Street between numbers 52 and 54 and Greens Lane, Chiltern, to vehicular traffic as outlined in Figure 2 in this report, and 2, notes that officers will now commence the statutory process required to allow barriers to be placed on the road, and 3, notes that the laneway will remain open to pedestrians, cyclists and other foot traffic. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Horn, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn.
I'm supportive of the proposed closure of the northern part of the laneway between Connors Street and Greens Lane to vehicular traffic, while keeping it open for both pedestrians and cyclists. This is the kind of decision communities appreciate because it's about something very simple, one of my favourite topics, safety. What I think residents will especially like is that it's not a shut the gate and walk away situation. The proposal is measured. It keeps the lane available for walking and riding, which supports local movement and accessibility. It's a low-cost fix, essentially just bollards, which is a good example of council solving a problem without over-engineering it. Adjacent property owners and emergency services have been consulted, and I think it's an all-round good outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yep. A public notice was placed following our October council meeting and remained open for 28 days, and this closed on the 6th of December, and 2 submissions were received and both supported the closure. And I'd really like to somehow, if we could all just note the date, that the 2 submissions were both in favour of something. So it doesn't happen very often in a council in a council meeting that we have 2 submissions and both of them are in favour. So I think, as you said, Councillor Horn, there's been a lot of engagement. This came from the community and they're very much supportive of it.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Horn. Would you like to sum up? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.2 is the road naming for the subdivision off Meehan Street, Rutherglen. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council adopts the name of Bullied Court for the road shown on the attached plan opposite 37 Meehan Street, Rutherglen. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Horn, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn.
This is about adopting the proposed name Bullied Court for the new road created by the subdivision of Meehan Street in Rutherglen. There's a lot to think about with road naming, and getting it right could literally mean the difference between life and death. Interestingly, this street honours sisters Maud, Catherine and Joanna Bullied, who are remembered as kind, generous and philanthropic community members due to their substantial support of various town projects over many, many years. I would like to acknowledge and thank our local historian, Nairi Chettle-Wiggins, for her assistance in providing the research details on these historically significant women.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, this, I think it's the second time, is it? We've used our August road and place naming policy, and it seems to be so far working very well. So that, as you said, Councillor Horn, the developer had a clear process for finding some names for his subdivision. And I remember as a young resident in Rutherglen in my 20s, the Bullied sisters were legendary at the time, and they were always known as the Bullied sisters. And as you said, had a lot of philanthropy and a lot of influence, and were a long-standing historical family in the region. So great to see their names up on street signs. It's so great use of the policy, and I think a good outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Horn. Would you like to sum up? No? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is Office of the CEO, and item 14.1 is the Draft Community Engagement Strategy 2025 to 2029. The recommendation is that Council endorses the Draft Community Engagement Strategy for 2025 to 2029 and places it on public exhibition for an extended period due to Christmas and New Year closures, and invites community feedback via submission. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Landells. Councillor Burke?
Thanks, Mayor. I support the idea of better community engagement and would like to hear the community's view of this draft community engagement strategy. But I do want to raise a few concerns about how we make sure everyone can actually take part in our engagement strategies. Most of our engagement now relies on the internet, online surveys, social media posts and council websites. That works well for many people, but not for everyone. Some older residents aren't confident online, and some people simply don't use the internet much at all. If engagement is mostly digital, these voices are missed. This is especially important in smaller towns. People in these communities don't always see council messages online, and they often rely on more traditional ways of getting information. When local newspapers aren't supported, an important communication channel disappears. For many residents, the local paper is still how they find out what's happening and how to have a say. Another issue is who we hear from online. Women use social media at about twice the rate of men, especially for community discussions. That's not a criticism, it just means that if council mainly uses social media to engage, we're likely to hear more from women than men. That can unintentionally skew feedback and means some views aren't represented as strongly as they should be. Engagement works best when it reflects the whole community. People are also more likely to take part when council comes to them, rather than expecting them to come to council. Face-to-face conversations work far better than an online form, especially in small towns where people value personal contact, and we should encourage more face-to-face contacts. If we want genuine engagement, we need to use more than one way to reach those people. My concern isn't with the strategy's intent, it's about making sure it works in real life. Engagement should be fair, accessible and local. If we don't make the effort to reach older residents, inexperienced internet users, people in smaller towns and groups who are less active online, then we won't be hearing from the whole community, and that matters. I hope the community will, from this exhibition, also identify the need for a wider engagement.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thanks. In my time working in local government, I'd say that the comms area of councils has become an area of considerable challenge and also opportunity. And I reference the exponential growth in social media channels and community uptake of those. But I also want to acknowledge Councillor Burke's points, which are extremely valid. We've got an ageing community across Indigo Shire, and making sure that we have a wide variety of options for people to provide feedback and to stay up to date with matters that affect them. Council is also very important. And I know that council's made an effort in that regard out in the Kiwa Tangam area by having pop-up customer service sites over the past year or two. And I think that's a really good initiative and certainly something that we need to continue to look at that model. I think I'll just like to say the comms team here at Indigo Shire, I think do a fantastic job in keeping up to date with, I guess being able to manage what it has become really an increasingly complex function of councils. And this strategy has had a lot of work put into it. It's a companion piece to the community engagement policy that we recently adopted. And I would just encourage community members to take time over the Christmas New Year period, maybe not the high period, but maybe in the early new year to read over it and pass on their feedback to us, just to make sure that the strategy is reflective of what the community is looking for.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Before I ask if any other councillor would like to speak to the motion, CEO, can I just clarify, the recommendation says for an extended period, public exhibition for an extended period due to Christmas and New Year's closures. I just want to be clear about that. Normally we stipulate a number of days. I think I can see by the intention of that comment, it's meant to be generous and an understanding of the Christmas period, but perhaps for clarity for the community so they can understand when we would next receive this document and so when that time frame could be.
Thank you, Mayor Price, for that question. And yeah, my apologies. It's not an amazingly clear recommendation. It could have been better. Reality is, though, that the next scheduled council meeting is not till the 24th of February 26, which is at least, it's exactly 10 weeks away. So this would be out for comment for at least 8 weeks in any case. So I guess we're trying to describe it. The intention of the recommendation was to say we normally wouldn't consult over the Christmas and New Year period, but given that it's such a long time to the February meeting, that we were saying it's okay, it is an extended period of time. So that was the intention of the words, but it's not very clear. But reality is we're aiming for February, and even bringing it to the first available meeting, that's still at least 8 weeks out in the community to make comments. We think that's a fairly extended period of time.
Thank you, CEO. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Price. I'd like to reinforce Councillor Burke's comments about reaching out to those people who aren't internet savvy, who aren't on social media and that don't live in the digital world that all of us live in more or less, and that we should look to more traditional ways of reaching these people like the newspaper and providing, questionnaires on a piece of paper they can fill out rather than having to type it online. There are an awful lot of people here in Beechworth and I imagine all over the Shire who haven't got an up-to-date computer or aren't on the internet, do their banking still with a passbook. I go up the street in the Commonwealth Bank and the WAW, these, mostly the elderly walk in with a passbook and they have it written in there. So we have to reach out to these people and ensure they have a chance to give their say as well. And we need to make them aware of this survey or this, this community engagement. Not just the people who are online. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
By putting this document on public exhibition for an extended period of time, we are inviting your input by submission. We genuinely want to know what you think about this updated strategy that is designed to align with the community engagement policy adopted earlier this year. Do our decisions deliver the best outcome for the greatest number of people? And can the community see how we got there, beg your pardon. I think you'll find this an interesting read, actually. It's a refreshingly honest look at the real constraints and capacity of our small rural council and how we manage risks like consultation fatigue and unmet expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you. Just a brief comment. I mean, community engagement is something that is mentioned to me frequently when I'm out and about talking to people. And when you read this document, you realise that there are actually lots and lots of ways for the community to engage with us. And I would really encourage members of the community to have a look at this document and provide their feedback. There's a great page in here that says ways to get involved in council decision making. It talks about the ongoing opportunities, project specific participation, and then our direct communication channels. So it's all there. Welcome the feedback and really looking forward to seeing what the community have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Burke. Would you like to sum up?
Nothing more, thanks.
No? Okay. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is the Audit and Risk Committee Charter 2025 review. Do I have somebody to move? The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council adopts the revised Audit and Risk Committee Charter. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Mayor. I support the recommendation to receive this Audit and Risk Committee performance survey. The report shows the committee is doing its job properly.
Sorry, Councillor Burke, that's the next item. So the first one is the charter. That's okay. Happy to remain the mover of the charter.
Yes,
yep.
yes,
Great.
yes. Yes, I move that we adopt the revised Audit and Risk Committee Charter.
Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
So the charter's been in operation since March 2023 and performance surveys did not indicate there was any need to change the structure or content. But the 24-25 performance survey indicated there was some lack of clarity of the role and expectations of the Audit and Risk Committee members. And so some proposed changes were identified by council officers. And then the key changes are summarised in the table. Basically, roles and responsibilities, authority, composition of the committee, terms of office, conflict of interest, and revision of the risk management section to reflect the risk management strategy and risk management framework are now separate documents. So that's the changes in the charter, which look to hopefully reflect the need for there being more clarity in the role and expectations.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? As a member of that Audit and Risk Committee, yes, I think Councillor Shepherd summed it up quite well. I'm always confident in the advice that we receive about any changes that need to be made to keep this document to be a best practice charter. And I'm also really pleased that some of the feedback about role clarity comes through because I think that that's really important. We want each member of that committee to have a very clear understanding of the different roles so that they can provide as much feedback and advice as they can to promote a really robust Audit and Risk Committee. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you. Councillor Burke, would you like to sum up?
No, that's all. Thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is the Audit and Risk Committee biannual report for October 2025. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 receives the biannual report of the Audit and Risk Committee, and 2 thanks the committee for its work. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved, Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Landells. Thanks, Councillor Burke.
Yes, I move that we receive the biennial report of the Audit Risk Committee and also thank the committee for its work over the last year.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, thanks.
Okay. As another one of the councillor members of the Audit and Risk Committee, I just think that it's a really important reporting mechanism that we receive this biannual report. The work that the Audit and Risk Committee does is some really important work, and it's quite a strict work plan that they have once it is set. And so by reading through this report, you can see that they've looked at the external audit strategy, the audit program and recommendations update, business continuity, governance, risk management. These are all things at the March meeting. It lists the key recommendations. At the July meeting, some of these standard items that we look at, but then an update on the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee, renewals, asset revaluations. So it's really important work that it works side by side with council. Councillors receive the agenda for this meeting in the lead up to it. And at the most recent meetings, again, there's been some really important work done where they've been setting the internal audit plan. And being able to be, again, that word we keep using tonight, nimble and sort of able to be very responsive to whatever issues are arising or whatever the sector is providing advice and guidance on that we might need to be auditing or reviewing. So I'm really pleased to say that the committee takes their responsibility very seriously and provides us great advice on what some of those audits could and should be. They also ask for that advice from ELT, the executive leadership team, and from the council law group, and from there we work with the officers to decide what the best program can be so that good work continues. If no other councillors would like to speak, I'll go back to you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Shepherd.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome Liam Mulcahy as a member, an independent member of the committee. We know Leanne, and she brings a strong and highly relevant portfolio of experience in local government, governance, risk and dispute resolution. Her credentials include over 20 years in senior leadership roles across local government and not-for-profit organisations. And at the same time to thank Mr. Aaron Cootes for his 6 years of dedicated service to the committee. His strategic insight, rigorous approach to audit and governance matters, and willingness to mentor and challenge have been of great value to this committee and by extension to Indigo Council's governance and risk maturity. So just wanted to, include those comments.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I'll go back to you. Sorry, any other councillor want to speak to the motion? Otherwise, I'll go back to you, Councillor Burke. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, I will by saying that just a big thank you to the 4 independent members, and I too share the same points that Councillor Shepherd has said about Leanne Mulcahy. It's really good to have someone who is new to this Shire Council, and she has been able to contribute quite a lot in it's the first year, and it's been quite a refreshing new approach to the way we look at each audit meeting. So but the committee together works really well together.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is the Audit and Risk Committee Performance Survey 2024-25. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that the Council receives the results of the 2024-25 Audit and Risk Committee Performance Survey. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Harvey. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try this again. I support the recommendation to receive the Audit and Risk Committee Performance Survey. The report shows the committee is doing its job properly and meeting its legal responsibility. It provides important oversight on how Council manages risk, money and decision making. And I think just one of the things about this performance survey is that I've been on a number of audit and risk committees over many years, and it's something that is a recommendation of best practice that you have a performance survey, and it's not always done. Often it's just the members sitting around and often just congratulating themselves on what a great job they've done, and that's not a real good performance survey. This survey was very comprehensive, and the results are mostly positive, which is encouraging. And at the same time, the survey also points out opportunities for improvement. And that's the most important thing about doing a performance survey. So these improvements are to include making the committee's role clearer as members change, improving the timing and follow-up of internal and external audits, and making sure feedback leads to action. I also welcome the idea of senior staff regularly talking with the committee about the major risks and the challenges facing council. That will help us all on the committee better understand the issues earlier and make better decisions. So receiving this report is appropriate, and I support using it as a practical tool by the Audit and Risk Committee to keep improving governance and accountability over extended time.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak as seconder?
Simply to say I recommend this report as well, and just glancing through all the strongly agree, I couldn't find anything where anyone disagreed. There were a couple of neutrals, so it is very important that we make sure that this council is doing things in a proper manner, and we're keeping an eye on our expenditure, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Again, I'm just really pleased always to see that this feedback is, well, for a start, there's a good uptake of people that participate in this survey. I think that it does provide really good feedback, but it also shows that there's a real openness to receiving this feedback. I think that that's a great environment that is that the Audit and Risk Committee has, is that the feedback is really welcomed and it's adopted. So lots of the feedback that has been provided has led immediately to actions that can be taken, so that this is a really workable committee for both the organisation, the auditors, both internal and external, and the independent members. So I think when you can see a good uptake as well as that feedback being incorporated, it provides a really healthy environment for robust discussion, which is what we need out of this committee. So, really pleased to see continuous improvement in that space. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Burke. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, I think that the summing up of this is that in this, the key message in this survey is to turn these improvement ideas into action. And so then the committee just keeps getting better and better and adding more value to the work we do.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5 is the instrument of delegation members of staff, S6. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council adopts the attached variation to the instrument of delegation members of staff, S6. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd?
So these were last reviewed in July 2025, and since that review, there have been changes to the Planning and Environment Act, which insert 4 new provisions, and these provisions must be delegated to our council officers to allow for the work to continue. So the four new provisions are listed, and they're all power to decide in relation to planning, scheme or permits, and their different modifications and alterations. And then these new provisions are to be delegated to, and at least the people who will be doing that work. Without us giving them that delegation, that work will be left to us. So I think it's probably best that the planners who know what they're doing are delegated to this legislative change.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? The only thing that I'd like to say is generally when we're receiving whatever the amendments are to these provisions, it's to keep up with compliance. It's because they're new recommendations that have been made in some form of legislation. And as it's noted in the report, it's based on legal advice and a template which is provided by Maddox Lawyers Delegations Service. We subscribe to this service annually so that we can make sure that we keep up to date with the instrument of delegation and receive that advice. So we receive it on a very strong footing and should be confident of that. If no other councillors would like to speak to the motion, I'll go back to you. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.6 is the appointment of Acting Chief Executive Officer. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 appoints the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton, as Acting Chief Executive Officer for the period from the 25th of February to the 10th of March 2026 inclusive. 2, authorises Greg Pinkerton to exercise all powers and authorities reposed in the position of Chief Executive Officer for their respective periods of the appointment as Acting Chief Executive Officer. And 3, notes that should the Chief Executive Officer be unable to undertake the leave within this period or otherwise resumes duties during this period, he will automatically resume all delegations and powers. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Dowsley, seconded Councillor Harvey. Councillor Dowsley, would you like to speak to the motion?
This is just really an administrative paper that we go through every time the CEO wants to go on annual leave for an extended period. Just ensures that an acting CEO has all of the powers and functions that they might need in that role.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak? No. No other councillors would like to say anything to this item. Councillor Dowsley, do you need to sum up? No. If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.7 is the advisory committee minutes, and the item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees and endorses the officer recommended actions. 1, the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee for the 1st of October 2025 and the 3rd of December 2025. And 2, the Indigo Community Access Committee. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Dowsley, seconded Councillor Horn. Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you. This is a agenda item that comes through most meetings. It simply is just a record of the minutes for the advisory committees that we have. I do have one question. When you're looking at the recommendation table, which is the number of recommendations that these committees are making to council, the first one is that council acknowledges and supports bringing to council's attention that the urban tree canopy strategy needs to be completed. Can I please ask Ian Ellett, Director of Infrastructure Services, for a timeline on when the urban tree canopy strategy will be completed?
Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah, look, we ran into some resource problems this year, which has caused it to sit in the background for a little bit. But yeah, we're back up and running now. So we'll be able to get on to that sort of early in 2026. And I'd be very confident it'll be completed in 2026 and somewhat confident that that'll be in the first half of the year.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Councillor Horn, would you like to speak as seconder? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I would just like to thank Greg Pinkerton, Director of Planning and Corporate Services, and Grace Perry, our statutory planner, who attended the last IEAC meeting and gave us a thorough discussion about the ESD policy and the IEAC then, of course, endorsed that, and we're very pleased to see that we were bringing that to council. So it was a great process to have them see it first, and they felt very confident in it, and it gives us confidence when our advisory committees support our documents.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Landells.
Yes, thanks. Whilst there's minutes from two advisory committees in this particular item, Indigo Shire has many advisory committees, and I'd just like to thank all the volunteers, particularly given it's the end of the year, on those advisory committees for their input in 2025. These volunteers are busy, active people in their own communities. They volunteer on other committees, and community input to advisory committees is critical. It brings professional expertise and experience in industry and community specific to the advisory committee's focus, and it adds critical value to the work that council does. So I'd like to thank them for investing their time for the benefit of our Shire. And I also want to thank one such volunteer on the Community Access Committee who has resigned due to work commitments. There was Linnell Bailey of Tangambalinga, and Linnell has provided valuable input to this advisory committee for several years. I'd like to thank her on behalf of council.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to you, Councillor Dowsley. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.8 is informal meeting of councillors' record. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Dowsley, seconded Councillor Harvey. Councillor Dowsley, do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Harvey? No. Any other councillor? No. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 15 is notices of motion. CEO, there are none.
Nil, Mayor Price.
Item 16 is councillors' report. Would any councillor like to make a report to the council meeting? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Price. I have 3 reports to make. I'll make them short. On November the 27th, Thursday, I attended the end of year celebrations for the volunteers of the Heritage Precinct. It was held in the Burke Museum. Quite nice food and some very nice wines were donated. And there were lots of the volunteers there, and they were thanked profusely for their giving up so much of their time to keep our heritage alive. And the same evening, just a little ways up the road, I went to a book launch at the Beechworth Library. It was a launch of this book here, I don't know if you know who Leo Netti is, but Leo Netti manages the telegraph station, and he almost lives there. I volunteer there a couple of times a week, and he's always there. He has been writing this book for the last 20 years, and I have, how shall I put it, sort of proofread it and had excerpts from it read to me over the last 10 years or so. Now, Leo was a former councillor and president of the United Shire of Beechworth, our predecessor, one of our predecessors. And he's very proud of this book, and I'll just put in a plug. He's got 400 copies of it, and it's available at the Tourism Information Center. And it is a very great contribution to the history of Beechworth. It goes all the way from the beginnings in Beechworth in the 1850s, almost up to the present day. And you may wish to know that the Beechworth Telegraph Station is the only operating telegraph station in Australia. You can still send a real telegram, as long as we have a couple of volunteers living in Bendigo and Melbourne, and they aren't getting any younger. But I recommend this book to you as part of our cultural history. Thank you. And one other little item. Last Thursday, I attended 2 primary schools for their Year 6 graduation awards, and both at Beechworth Primary and St. Joseph's Primary School. And they were both impressive events. And once again, I was very impressed by the achievements of these young people. You know, I think people condemn the youth, but these people are really doing things and really working hard. And that's my reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would any other councillor like to make a report? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you. Last week I attended the Osborne Flat Hall to, I guess, officially open, I'm not sure how you open, heating and cooling in the hall. So they've got new reverse cycle air conditioners. It's the second stage of a project of theirs. The first stage was to install solar panels, battery storage and a generator connection point. And now this is the second stage of that project. This project was supported by the Indigo Shire's Community Sustainability Grants Program. And it's just a really great program. They've done a great use of that community grants program. They're now seeing an increased use in the hall now that they've got heating and cooling, particularly cooling. I think the primary school were there doing an event over the last couple of weeks and were able to use the air conditioning, which was fantastic. And this is just a really great example of community-led sustainability in action.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to make a report to the council meeting? Councillor Landels.
Yes, I'd like to talk about, similar to Councillor Harvey, about school awards presentations. There's a lot of schools across Indigo Shire, 17 or 18, I suppose, a couple of high schools, perhaps even 1 or 2 more than that. But at this time of the year, we're kept quite active going to these presentations. And it always strikes me that Indigo Shire is has a strong community focus, and school communities are communities within communities. And I think it's really a great opportunity for us to keep building those community connections by having a presence at these awards events, apart from the fact they're very heartwarming and you know, it's fabulous to see the kids who just love to get up and perform, and it really does. Yeah, often it's their energy and spirit that carries these events. But I also want to acknowledge the school principals, admin staff, teachers and parents who sit on the school councils for their effort through 2025. I went to the Barnawath one a couple of weeks ago, and I went to Middle Indigo last week. I've got some great news to report that Middle Indigo numbers are set to grow in 2026 by 25%. So from 16 to 20, they've got 8 preps coming in and 4 year 6s going out. So that's really positive. And that was, you know, so obviously we have some schools that are quite small, but nonetheless, the feeling of community there is very strong. I'd also like to just make mention of last Thursday. This is something I attended, and so did a number of other councillors here, attended the Shire staff breakfast in Yakandanda. And I think, again, at this time of the year, it's really appropriate to just thank all the staff who we've got the CEO here, we've got 3 directors, we've got staff who almost specifically their roles are to organise us and make sure all our calendar appointments are up to date and all those sort of things. We've got staff who provide reports to council at briefings and at council meetings. We've got staff who are on advisory committees. And I think, and of course, over the Christmas break, some staff will inevitably work or be on call because council's role never really stops, even though, you know, we might be on a sort of a more skeleton staff, lighter duties kind of mode. But, you know, I thought it was appropriate this time of year just to thank all the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Would any other councillor like to make a report to the council meeting? Councillor Burke.
Yes, just a couple of things, couple of visits during the last month. One was to the Sandy Creek Recreation Reserve with you, Mayor Price, and it's really good to get out and speak to the key people in the organisations. It had nothing to do with any grants or any current activities or construction work. They just gave us a view of gave us their vision of what they see that the Sandy Creek Recreation Reserve could be and how it can be utilised a lot more than what it is now. And it was really good to just learn more about it. And the other thing was that just this week I've done 2 school presentations. It was must have been last week. I did the Kiwa Valley Primary School graduation and awards night, and being in summer, and we put the senior school or the year 6s and all the children and parents into the club rooms of the Kiwa Football Club. It was great. It's the first time I've been there, and I didn't have to take my coat off because the air conditioners that we gave them from one of the grants were working very well. So that was a good change. And secondly, I went to the Tallangatta Secondary College this morning, their awards event, and that was something, it's a long-standing thing that we've been doing through the Shire there. So yeah, it was good events.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to make a report to the council meeting? No. Item 16.2 is the Mayor's Diary, which is there for information and shows the events that were attended, the functions, events or meetings for November 2025. Item 17 is the Decisions Register, again listed for information. The report outlines from council resolutions as at the 25th of November 2025, including those not previously listed as completed, but not including resolutions to note a report. Item 18 is general business. Do we have any general business for the council meeting? Councillor Horn.
I'm delighted to ask the CEO if he has any information for us on safety in Main Street, Rutherglen, please.
Thanks, Councillor, for the question, through you, Mayor Price. Yeah, I did receive a phone call last week from the Department of Transport, some might know as Vic Roads former time, to let me know that they've awarded the contract. They did that last week. They were currently at the time negotiating with the contract to confirm the exact start date. They indicated that would not be before Christmas, which is a good thing at this late stage. The start date's likely to be later in January, and that there was a suggestion that they would be keeping those affected stakeholders informed via a letterbox drop, because as you can imagine, those works will have impact along Main Street and will affect, while the works are on, some businesses along the way at certain times.
Do any other councillors have any items for general business? No. If not, then we will now move towards item 19, which is confidential items. Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 states a council or delegated committee must keep a meeting open to the public unless the council or delegated committee considers it necessary to close the meeting to the public because of a circumstance specified in subsection 2 applies. And the circumstances are the meeting is to consider confidential information as defined in section 3 of the Local Government Act, or for security reasons, or that it is necessary to do so to enable the meeting to proceed in an orderly manner. Before I call for a recommendation for us to close the meeting in accordance with those provisions, I just note to any community that might be following along with the meeting, at the completion of these confidential items, we will re-enter the open meeting, but all we'll be doing at that point will be declaring the meeting closed. So rather than wait till that point, I think it's important to say at this stage that we hope that you have had a great 2025. Council will resume again in 2026. This is our last meeting for the year. We're hoping that you all have a safe and happy and healthy holiday period, and that you're able to surround yourselves with family and loved ones over this time. We're looking forward to continuing some good work for you in 2026. So as I say, I'll now ask for a recommendation that the council meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 66 of the Local Government Act. Moved Councillor Harvey, seconded Councillor Horn. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We will now move into confidential session. We have just moved a motion to move back out of the confidential session. Now I'd like to declare that the meeting is closed at 8:10 p.m. The next council meeting is Tuesday, the 24th of February 2026 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.